Next up is Mary Willis. She's the CEO of Fidelity Bank in North Carolina. And she sent me a draft of her comments like a week ago, so I know she's done a very good job of reading all of these papers and taking detailed notes, and she's going to have some great insights for the panelists.
Thank you. Well, thank you. It's great to be here, and I appreciate you allowing me to come. First, I'd like to thank all the researchers also because what they've talked about, deposit stability and funding costs, have been at the top of all of bankers' minds. You know, in the past 5 years, we've seen rates plummet down to zero, come back up. We've all had so much cash, so much funding. Our cost of funds have been almost nothing, and then all of a sudden the liquidity starts going away, cost of funds start going back up. So now we're at this kind of the peak of this cycle, and I think it's a good question of how quickly are deposit costs going to come back down. So I think your research is very relevant to what's going on in our industry right now. But I'll say with our bank's model, our experiences don't necessarily align with maybe the rest of the industry or what some of the researchers have pointed out today. I'm just going to point out or highlight some of the studies and how it affects our bank and what we've done or why we deviate from that. Like I said, as a community bank, I'm the president of Fidelity Bank. I've been there for 32 years, only job I've ever had outside of McDonald's when I was 16. So I might be a little biased here. So Fidelity Bank's a $4 billion small business bank. We have about 55 branches across North Carolina, upstate South Carolina, and Southern Virginia. We're 115 years old and privately owned. So I'm very lucky and very fortunate. That allows us to focus on what truly matters, and that's our customer. Focusing on the customer, what's best for the customer, and the long-term success of our bank. I don't have to worry about what my short-term stock prices are or worrying about shareholder pressure. So I am very fortunate, and I do realize that. But I'll say what really sets us apart from, I will say, some of our competitors is we truly do have an unwavering commitment to relationship banking. We focus on cultivating very long-term connections with our customers, and I'll say particularly small businesses. At our bank, you know, a relationship comes first. I'll tell you, I don't make loans to anybody I don't have checking accounts for, and I don't let people open CDs if I don't have a checking account, because our model is all about relationship banking. And that makes our mission very, very clear. And our mission statement is to be an independent, sound, and profitable bank that businesses and families come to first and bank with for life. And I think that life part right there is really kind of gets into what I'm going to be talking about today. So we built our bank really on, I say it's customer loyalty is the reason for our success. Our motto is right by you. So this applies to our customers, our associate, and the bank. We take that across all three. With our customers, we strive to understand what their goals and dreams are and try to be there to help them. We try to personalize everything for them. It doesn't matter what channel they're in, whether they're in person, on the phone, or online. Our job is to know them by name and be there and understand what their needs and wants are and try to help them. And I'll say by having the commitment of being right by you, we've earned very strong loyalty with our customers. And that's reflected in that we have 44% of our deposits are non-interest bearing checking accounts. And we have the 6th lowest cost of funds in the nation from banks from $3 billion to $10 billion. So our model today really does, in our experiences, doesn't necessarily fit that of the industry or maybe what some of the researchers here have presented. So I'm just going to highlight a few things that, you know, where we agree and where we're different, and not to say that they're wrong at all. It's just that my model's a little different from theirs. So I'll start with Mustafa's variable deposit betas and bank interest rate risk exposure. He emphasized that deposit betas are not fixed, and in fact they tend to rise as interest rates increase. Well, interest rate measurement discussions are frequently taken at a snapshot in time. So where are you right now? And you're going to come back to three things. You're going to be asset sensitive, liability sensitive, or interest rate neutral. For us, we're asset sensitive. And back in 2022, you know, when Fed began raising rates, our earning asset yields increased by 8 basis points. Our interest-bearing liabilities didn't increase at all. The next go around in first quarter of 23, Fed is still raising the rates. Our earning asset yields increase another 19 basis points, but our deposit rates only increase 13 basis points. But then you get into the next quarter of 23, and then all of a sudden you see, well, asset yields increase another 14, but all of a sudden deposit rates increase 35 basis points. So in that second quarter, that was our inflection point, that our assets were shorter than our liabilities, our margins were growing with the rates up to this point, at which time our funding costs became more sensitive and our deposit betas became longer. For us, our deposit betas have always remained relatively low. You know, the Fed's increased rates 525 basis points, and when we looked at other banks across North Carolina, they increased their rates paid on deposits by 302 basis points. So that was a 58% pass-through rate in North Carolina. My pass rate was 29%. And that goes on par with the low betas that we were talking about, the low rate environment that Mustafa talked about a second ago. So how did we do it? Well, as I said earlier, our model is different. It's all about the relationship banking. We pursue long-term clients and relationships, which is kind of pointed out in our balance sheet. 87% of our deposits are non-maturity core deposits, and 44% of our deposits are non-interest bearing. And I'll also say that our average life of our customer or an account, a non-maturity account, is over 10 years for us. So our customers, once we get them in the bank, they don't usually leave. So, you know, the reflection here I will say is because of our customers' behaviors, they don't necessarily take their money to the bank down the street when they're offering 5%. They're loyal to us and they stay with us. And that's kind of just pointed out by, we don't have transactional type accounts. They're really relationships. So as the author stated, you know, deposit betas are low when rates are low because of the convenience. Primary liquidity of holding deposits is greater than the opportunity cost of deposits. Our experience tells us that having a relationship with your customer and knowing your customer increases the benefit of holding that deposit account. The opportunity cost must be higher before a customer moves their deposit. And as a result, we've been able to maintain a very healthy cost of funds. And that's kind of how we're different there. The next one I'll say was for Josh when we talked a little bit about the deposit characteristics and deposit stability. You know, his paper's talking about the deposit characteristics provides a lot of support for knowing your customer. And he finds that their study that the more sophisticated your customers are, the more vulnerable you are to deposit outflows and rise in deposit costs. Now, we talked about sophistication meaning, you know, your income levels, your education level, your participation in the financial markets. For us, I will say my clients, I am all over the board. I'm a small business bank. I go after small businesses, and just like Corey talked about a few minutes ago, I bank to small businesses, but the purpose is to get their families, their employees, and everyone around them. So my customer base varies. I've got customers that make hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue a year, and I've got a whole lot more that are one person, you know, self-employed plumbers, electricians, painters. I mean, so I'm not, I bank a lot of blue collar, and that's probably I have doctors, lawyers, CPAs too, but I am a blue collar bank, the true working class. So that's a little bit about who my customer is. After reading the paper, I was curious to see if we had any deposit behavior that varied depending on the areas where our branches were located, but I couldn't find any meaningful difference when we did that research. We did see some differences depending on the customer's age, though. From the first quarter of 2022 until now, time deposits to total deposits grew faster for older clients and for those older customers who also had higher deposit betas at the same time. I know that you found that banks with older customers tend to have lower deposit rate sensitivity. For us, we're the opposite. Older customers who are retired or they sold their businesses, they have excess cash, those are actually where we've had to raise our funding costs have actually gone up for that class more than the other ones, the other age demographics. But from a rate perspective, we've seen how different customer demographics or a concentration of customers with similar characteristics can impact deposit stability. However, we've seen little instability from a balance sheet perspective. Total deposits have grown for us across all age groups except for that 70 and above, and those have really just moved from non-maturity deposits over to time deposits. So it's just been a shift, and like I said, about the rate. So I agree with everything that Rajesh said. I truly believe that customer characteristics are crucial drivers of deposit price and balance stability. So the next paper was the economics of market-based deposit insurance with Edward, and I agree, maintaining strong relationships with your clients requires a whole lot of trust, and your customers need to trust that their money is going to be safe with you. And so for a person that has less than $250,000, it's really not that big of a deal. But when all of that individual's money is insured and protected. So, but when we think about depositors with uninsured funds, it does become a little more essential. Edward talked about the reciprocal deposits, and I think that they've become much more popular obviously after 2023 with the collapse of Silicon Valley, and people did stop and ask, is my money safe? Reciprocal deposits, they provide a great solution. They offer security, people feel like their money is safe. But I will say that reciprocal deposits really don't change the risk-prone nature of our industry. And I think that you will find that some banks who have them, if you go out and look, it is a little more risky because they have increased their maturity gap, and the interest rate risk has also changed some of those banks. For us, we do not have reciprocal deposits. I haven't needed them. Nothing wrong with them whatsoever, but our model has never really required us to have them. I've always, safety and soundness has always been our first concern. We've always had excess cash for that. So, and that's just been part of our strategy. Our customers know us for that. That's one thing I will say, our customers, being 115 years old, being in a lot of small communities. I'm in some of the big cities like Raleigh, the Research Triangle Park in North Carolina is booming. You can't go wrong there. But I'm in just as many very small rural towns in North Carolina and Southern Virginia also. And the people have got to trust you, and they've got to feel like your bank is safe. So when SVB, like Corey talked about a few minutes ago, when SVB failed, we didn't have a run on our deposit. It was an absolute non-event for us, but we did reach out to some of our customers and just take the pulse. Is there anything we can do for you? And we had the exact same experience as him. They were all of a sudden like, well, I got some more money I need to give you, or let's talk about a mortgage, or let's talk about something else instead. So they're always happy to talk to you, and it's just people want a relationship. They want someone just like each of you. Until you want something, you just want someone to call. You want somebody's name, feel like they care about you if you need something. So I think that, so our focus, on long-term client relationships. our customers have trusted us for decades, and when they've had issues or problems, we've been by their side. I can't tell you of anybody that I've ever asked to leave the bank. If they're willing to work with us, if they get themselves in trouble and they're willing to work with us, we're willing to work with them. And I think that it all talks about the character of your customer also. So in conclusion, I'll just say that, you know, I've been really impressed and I've enjoyed reading all the papers. Each provide valuable insights. It's just at my bank, we are a little bit different. You know, we diverge the conclusions reached in our research, and it's not that the research is flawed at all. It's just that my business model's different, and just like many others, it doesn't always fit neatly into the framework of averages and bell curves. Research tends to focus on broad patterns, but the reality is that bank operating models are incredibly diverse and nuances that research sometimes overlooks. At Fidelity, our model is built on deep, lasting relationships that add values to our business, stabilize our deposit base, and ensure safety and soundness for our balance sheet. But how do you quantify that? How do you put a number on the strength of a bank's relationship in your research? I mean, how do you do that? I believe that it's critical need for more research dedicated to understanding deposit behavior in relation to a bank's specific business model. I think if you take two banks operating in similar markets, similar small businesses and individuals, on paper they might look identical, but if their approaches to attracting and retaining customers differ, then their deposit behavior, I guarantee, will also differ, whether it's financial stress or when interest rates fluctuate. So in short, there's more to banking than what the numbers just suggest, and I encourage further exploration into maybe the intangible aspects of the bank strategy, especially around the human element of relationships and the financial stability and deposit behavior. So, thank you.